Well, we've got some treats here for you today. We're going to be using, we've got some freshly made fig bread. This is fig bread, very nicely done. You can see that there, right? Nice crumb. And then we also have something called lichias or lychee, depending where you are. They're going to call it something slightly different. When I was growing up here in Maryland, my whole family, we're all Filipino, they were like lichias, right? So it's called lychee or lychee. And when I was living in Hawaii, a lot of the people that I knew in Hawaii, especially this one girl, she had a tree on her family's property, and she would call it lychee. And so the nice thing about this is, well, the sad thing is that I think it's only once every 2 years the tree will bring harvest to it. So you can only get it once every 2 years, but she would have a lot. So what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A. And the interesting thing, as I was making, well, maybe it's not interesting to you, but to me it's kind of interesting. As I was creating all of the descriptions for the show for today, I realized that this is episode 456. So, when you're punching into the keyboard, like 456, oh, nice. So how's it going? Hope your weekend was a good one. Here in Maryland or in the United States, we had a long weekend. It was Labor Day weekend, which is a holiday that marks the end of summer, and it is one to honor the labor movement. People that have worked in America. Like this is a country built on exploitation, and for generations, workers have been exploited by companies, by the rich, and today is a day, or yesterday was a day that kind of celebrates that, a day for you to take off and relax and sit back and not have to labor. And the interesting thing is that, there's so much anger about, let's say, unions in America today, because people have been taught that unions are bad and unions do these bad things. But in many respects, a lot of what we as laborers, workers in the United States today enjoy is because of labor unions, because of the efforts for workplace safety, for non-exploitation of children, the child labor, things like that. Days off, 5-day work weeks. These are all things that came from labor. And of course, we have someone that's supposedly the president that is telling everybody that Labor Day should be, or that laborers work too much and they should not be celebrating Labor Day and they should reduce the amount of time off. So anyway, that was that's our weekend here. So we had 3 days off, or a whole weekend, so extra day. So hope yours was a good one out there in the world. I know it's kind of, in the rest of the world, you're just kind of doing your day. And it's interesting. As I traveled around the world a lot, you go to places outside, or I would go to places outside the United States where let's say I traveled quite a few times during the Thanksgiving holiday here. And Thanksgiving holiday, Thanksgiving here is a Thursday. Always the third Thursday, I think third Thursday of November. And, when you go to other places, well, it's just a Thursday. It's like, oh, okay. But I do remember one year I was in Kampala, Uganda, and I was staying. They put me up at the Serena Hotel, which is a lovely, wonderful hotel in Kampala. And it was Thanksgiving Day, and we were out working, doing coffee, and then came back to the hotel, and it was nice because the one nice touch of, there's no talking, but that day at the restaurant, at the buffet, they had turkey, and I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. That's kind of a nice touch. And I guess, there is a lot of embassy staff that will come in, so they want to cater to that. Anyway, so we've got some fruit today. We're going to be continuing on our series of working with the OXO Rapid Brew, in case you might have been wondering. Today I've got a recipe that is from a guy named Lance Hedrick. You probably are familiar with him. He's a YouTuber, and he has a recipe. He has a video out. Well, I probably should have put a link to the video. Anyway, he had a recipe in there that I thought, let's give that a try. We're trying to compile recipes of the OXO Rapid Brewer to see which one might be worthy of your time to try. And I've also compiled a playlist that will have all of these live streams about the OXO Rapid Brewer in one. So in case you want to go back and revel in these times to look at the different recipes, you can do that as well. So today's recipe is going to be a little bit different. It's 15 grams of coffee, 250 grams of water, So I think they said it was a 1 to 17 ratio. So there it is. That's what we're going to have. So we're going to have a little bit larger of a brew. Now, one thing about the OXO cold brew or the rapid brewer is that this carafe will not hold 250 grams. It may hold very close, but it's not really designed for that. So we're going to exceed the capacity of this. So we're going to use, I think we can use this. Yeah, we can use this to do our pumping. So we're going to do that. Here's and that's what's going to aloha to you. Kent, hello. How are you, man? Good to see you. Mom's with us. Good morning. Naomi, good morning. All I won't be able to participate, but I'll watch after. Oh, no worries. Always good to have you. Always good to have you. Kelly says, just got back from the countryside and had a cup of coffee from one that has the first flavor note as lychee. What do you say, Keone? You're from Hawaii. Do you say lychee? Do you say lychee? What do you say? First or the second? So speaking of the lychee, right? So I thought we'd have a little. So when you get the lychee, you pick it, it's not always this red, but this red means that it's kind of ripened. Here in Maryland, or most of the United States, except Hawaii, probably Guam, and maybe Puerto Rico if they have it there, you can't grow this here. It's a tropical fruit, and it doesn't grow here because it's too cold. So there's a very thin skin. So I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna open it up. This is the reason I have this is that I was at the Asian market. That's where you buy this Asian market. They had it, and I always, anytime I'm there, they have it. I buy because this is actually my favorite fruit. This is the fruit I grew up eating here in Maryland, right? And it's just a little bit of a white pulpy fruit, not pulpy, but just kind of. I don't even know how we describe this, but it's always sweet and there's a unique flavor to it. Mm. Now, there is a big seed. So you do want to be careful with the seed. We just toss the seed. We don't really need to keep that. And then the wrapper, we can toss the wrapper. So if you get a chance to try it, like if you're at an Asian market, give it a try. Let it get. Now, one of the problems by having this, here is that sometimes they get really sweet, sometimes they don't. This ones are a little bit sweet. They're not as sweet as I have them or as I would love them to be, but they're okay. They're okay. I mean, it's certainly better than not having them. But they're not going to be. They have canned versions that have the seeds removed. Those are much sweeter. Those are nice. I mean, I like this. So here's a treat for you. If you want, get the can of lychee, right? At the Asian market. They might have it at American market, but anyway, they get it at the Asian market. Take all the fruit out. Hold on to the syrupy liquid that's inside. Put the fruit in the blender. Put some ice. Add some of the syrup. Blend it all together. Not too much ice, but blend it together, and you get this kind of like slushy lychee shake. Wow, love that. See, Keone's from Hawaii, lychee. Either way, what you do, whatever you pronounce it, it's still delicious. Now, here's the thing that I think is interesting, and why one of the things I think is lychee is a curious thing to show on a coffee show is that I think it demonstrates something that we don't really talk about in coffee very often. It's something that I, as a judge and as someone that would run competitions, is something we would talk about because I think it's important that, especially at the levels that I was dealing with, mainly because we're talking about going to different parts of the world. And I would bring along a set of judges that I would invite from different parts of the world, people that I trusted, people that I thought were amazing talents in coffee, friends of mine. And so I would bring them along and we would run these competitions. But the thing is that when you bring people when you have people gather from different parts of the world, everybody brings their own experience. And those experiences are going to necessarily be different. And that includes taste and taste perception and the way that you identify flavors that you perceive in a coffee. So one of the things we would have to try to figure out is how do you get, like if you have someone that's an Asian-based judge or someone that has, and they say, and they're tasting a coffee and they identify a flavor as lychee, and you have a Western judge that's never eaten this, how do you get them to like agree, or how do you get them to understand what this tastes like? And I know that might seem a little bit odd, but if you think about something that I think most people will have eaten is an orange, right? If the person you're trying to talk to has never eaten an orange, how do you describe the orange? I mean, most people would be like, well, it tastes like an orange. Yeah, but what does that taste like, right? And so same thing with pretty much every fruit that's out there, any kind of flavor descriptor, is that what does this lychee taste like? I know what it tastes like. I know what it tastes like intimately. And there's millions of people, billions of people across the planet that know exactly what this tastes like. So if I say, wow, there's this lychee nut, they're like, oh yeah, right? But conversely, there's also billions of people that have never tried this, or maybe just a few 100,000, or a couple million, 300 million here in the United States, have never tried this. They have no idea what it tastes like. And so I think that this little fruit here just kind of, represents an interesting conundrum that we face, when talking about bringing judges in from worldwide locations, because of their differences in experience that I don't know. I don't think we address it well enough. How do we get people to agree or to recognize these flavors? And it doesn't have to be lychee. It could be anything. There's so many different flavor identifiers that are out there that you may or may not have heard of, and that I certainly have not heard of. Like when it comes to oranges, there's this particular orange in the Philippines called dalandan. And it's kind of more tarty. It's a little bit more bright. The fruit, it's not like a deep orange flavor. It's kind of like a lighter orange flavor. But I haven't really seen it anywhere else in the world. It's really mainly there. And there in the Philippines, you can I go to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, and there's a juice guy, and he's got dalandan juice freshly squeezed. And I'm like, man, this is one thing that I look forward to for every time I'm in Manila. It's like I'm going to the farmer's market and get the fresh dalandan, and maybe I might get 3 cups of it. Who knows? But he puts it in a cup. He's got a lot of ice, so it's like nice and cold. But it is a variation on orange. Then how do you describe that variation? These are the things that as a taster, or hopefully you're thinking about, or hopefully the tasters you might know are thinking about these things like, how would I describe that? How do I make the differentiation between these fruits and such? But I just thought I would throw that in here. We'll get to the fig bread in a little while. Ken says, that's why it's funny to me that you guys complain about never getting blueberry notes in your coffee. Different tasting blueberries from, see, that's an important point. Like different varieties of blueberries are going to have different characteristics. And so like, I've talked about like not having necessarily blueberry flavors in my coffees over the years since the 2007 version of the Misty Valley. But that year and the 2003 Harar that I had from Stumptown had the type of blueberry flavor that we eat where I am here in Maryland, right? Like, I don't know much about blueberries. So I'm totally like stylizing on what you're saying, Ken, but I'm presuming that there's multiple varieties of blueberries. And so whatever blueberry variety that we're using here, it's kind of like the Cavendish bananas that we have in the United States that are dying out. And there's so many other bananas, but I think that's a very fair point, because I haven't, since the 2007 Edito Misty Valley, I have not had a coffee that had that particular blueberry character ever. Like since it's been like, even this one does not give that character. But if you tried it and you're used to different varieties of blueberry, maybe it does have it, right? And that's the thing, is like we're limited by our experiences. And so, which is why I try to encourage everyone that we work with, like baristas, our cooks, our bakers, to taste everything. You want to taste everything that you can, because that's the only way to build up your vocabulary, your library of memory to relate And now you make me think I need to go find more blueberries. Too bad blueberry season here is over. But that is a very fair point. Very fair point. Andrew Borjas with us. What, Andrew? How are you, man? Good to see you. I was just with Cirillo on Sunday. We were hanging out. We were talking about you a little bit. Just like, oh, man. Andrew's got this lovely house, and it has a fireplace. We're talking about fireplaces. And when we go there on wintertime for wintertime dinners, Andrew's a wonderful, wonderful cook. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. If you're familiar with the culinary world, he's an alumni of Jean-Georges Van. Oh, no. I want to say Jean-Georges Van Gerichten, but that's not right. Jean-Louis Paladin from in Washington, D.C. Back in the 80s, famous chef, like the level of like, you know, I want to say Jose Pepin, but that's completely wrong. Oh my gosh. Pepin, the French chef, he's on that level, right? Like totally highly respected, well regarded, very successful. But anyway, the nice thing about the thing that I was shocked is that 1920s they were home, and first time I was invited, I go over there, and man, the guys are all smoking cigars. The guys and girls are smoking cigars. I'm like, what are you doing smoking in the house? That seems crazy to me. But evidently, when the way these houses were set up, you crack the doors open a little bit, and you've got the fireplace running. Everything flows through the fireplace. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I was like totally blown away by that. Totally blown away. Jenny says, and the syrup from cans lychee to vodka. Oh, add the canned syrup. Add the syrup from canned lychee to vodka or gin and make. Oh yeah. Oh, good point. Jacques Pepin, thank you, bro. No, you totally got that right. I just couldn't remember. I'm thinking I was like saying Jose. I was actually thinking Jose Pepin. And I was like, that's completely wrong. I'm thinking Jose Andres and then Jacques Pepin. But that's so the J, and then I was like, that's not right. So maybe that confused me. Anyway, let's go to our recipe. Put this aside here. Put this forward. I got this big cutting board. This cutting board I finally I refinished the other day. I made it about I made it last December, and we've been using it, and of course it gets a little bit it loses some of its luster, and so it needed to be a little bit touched up. Okay, so we've got our first of all, we're going to leave the OXO there. What we need is to get our coffee ready. Again, this is the Idito. No, that's not the Idito. This is the Misty Valley from last year's harvest, 2024. The 2025 harvest is coming off the trees now. But for Ethiopia, Yirgacheffe grade 1, beautifully, really well selected and sorted. There's a little bit of an errant green bean. This is one of the problems of coffee roasting, is that sometimes you get a little bit extra bean there. We'll throw that out. And this coffee made by Abdullah Bagesh, a really amazing producer who I've known for many, many years now. And what else did I tell you about it? It's a lovely coffee. And we've been using it for all of the OXO Rapid Brew recipe series because we wanted to have the same coffee just as a baseline to see, because, I think the idea is that, or at least the idea is that maybe one of these brew methods will stand out and be like, this is the most amazing cup ever. This is brewers a godsend, something like that. That is what we're hoping to see. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit more here. Go back to our weight, stir. And now we're going to use 15 grams. The recipe is 15 grams of ground coffee. And they say that they want to grind the coffee. See, here's the thing. He's talking in the video, he's talking about grinding the coffee very fine, like he doesn't like it that fine or whatever. And then he's talking about the grind that he's using here, which he says it's for the V60 grind, but not as coarse. So that leads me to believe that he's coming from the fine end. So this is on the finer, the finer end of V60 pour over style. And we've got our fellow O Gen 2. None of these are sponsored, by the way, just in case you might. if you're a new viewer, you might be wondering, wow, oh, there's a lot of fellow there. There's all this stuff here. None of it's sponsored. I get nothing free. I buy everything, not necessarily by choice, just by circumstance. And we've got the OGen 2. So this is the setting. This middle setting is 6 is where I would normally put the V60, right? Or I would start there and then go back and forth. So we're gonna go a little bit more. I was gonna go to 5, but then I think sometimes maybe I'll hover somewhere in here for V60. And then I did get a comment on the videos, some other videos. One gentleman was like, I can hear your burrs touching, or something like that. And it's like, I think you need to recalibrate them. And I was like, probably, because we did take this apart that one day because we had that jam and I had to unclog it. And so one of the things when you put it back, it's like, oh, well, how really do you reset it? Because if I remember correctly, there's more positions on the burr setting, on the burr internals, than is actually available on this knob. So I probably should have gone all the way at the fine setting, like almost to the point that they were touching and then come off. But I asked him. I replied to him and said, "Hey, if you have a link to a video or something that actually shows how to do this, that would be great, because I don't really know exactly how to do it. I would only be guessing." All right, so we've got our coffee. Nothing's in here. Russell's with us. Good morning, Russell. Busa, how are you doing? Good to see you. All right, we've got, let's see, our weight is drifting here now. Weight is drifting. One more for good measure. Okay, good. That's fine. Oh, let's go back to that. We need to have our action cam. It does sound like it's chattering, doesn't it? I still, to this day, am very much enjoying the fact that it's a lot faster than my Barazza. My old and very well used Barazza Virtuoso, and I want to say that because I don't know what the modern day Barazza Virtuoso, how that works. But mine is one that the one that we've used for many episodes is one that I got used in 2007. So it was well loved by the time I got it. So it was probably a few years old, and yeah. All right, now let's look at our grinds. There's our grinds. I guess that's a little bit coarser than pour over, or maybe it's just pour over. Who knows? Who knows? Don't sweat it. You can always make adjustments and change. So we're going to take this apart. Have to reheat. Take this up. Then we've got our tamper. In this particular case, we will not be using a tamper. We will be discarding that. And instead, we're going to put at the bottom of this, I just blew into it because I noticed there was a little one speck. We want to get my practice that you want to get everything out. Right? I always want everything to be clean. So one AeroPress filter. Put that at the bottom. Okay. Now, tare. And maybe we're going to go to the Brew Assist. Let's try Brew Assist. All right. Then we're going to add our coffee. Good. Now it's kind of mounded. I don't like that. I can't help myself. Even if you're supposed to do the mounding, which I don't know, I just can't. It hurts my internal aesthetic, right? Okay, so we're going to add our cap. Now there are locating pins here. I know it's going to be hard to see, but there are locating pins right here. So you just want to line them up. But that just means you've got a good seal, right? So we're going to use our Temu special $7. And look at that. It fits perfectly. Like that is just... And I have totally mucked that up. This is not. Okay, we're not going to use it in the way... Okay, we're not going to use that. That's just silly. Oh, there's a timer mode. I guess if I hit this button, it'll start the time. Okay, that'll be very helpful. That'll be helpful. We're doing, and I'm not going to go to the brew assist because now that I've added more components and I have to add this, it's not gonna. This is. Oh no, I don't know. I guess I won't add this till after, but it's still silliness. Okay, now it doesn't fit exactly perfect. It's slightly tilted, which we're not going to worry too much about. Okay, we've got everything set. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour 45 grams, wait 30 seconds, add more water up to 250 grams. The timer's running. Close this. I'm going to unlock that. And at 1 minute 30 seconds, we're going to start pumping light pumps until it's all done. And I'm presuming, that by the time that we get to that point, it's pretty much going to have flowed through because that's been the experience lately. Okay, water is at a full boil. Now let us. Okay, let's go. We're going to tear, and then we're going to start. 45 grams. The nice thing about pouring is I don't really have to do the circular motion thing that I'm so used to. Okay, we're going to wait till 30 seconds, and then we're going to add the rest of the 250. Now, I got to say, it is going a lot slower than I was expecting it to go. It's kind of stalled. Huh. Interesting. And one of the problems that it is tilted, so I don't know how much that's going to affect it. And it's just at a size that, it's totally, wow, it has totally stopped flowing. Oh. Going to 250, baby, 250. I don't even know if it's going to fit in here. We're almost at the very top. This is ridiculous. Now the weight of the water has started to push itself through the coffee bed. 132. We're already at 132. That was like. Okay, now take this off the scale so I don't break it. And now, okay, so it's still full. It's completely full now. So we're going to press one. Just a few light pumps, not too hard. And it's pushing it out fairly quickly. I'm surprised at how fast it's pushing it out. The air's starting to come through. So with one more pump that pushed the air. There we go. So it's completely dispensed now. Now, I don't know if this is going to be true with this one, but with the AeroPress, whenever I'm finished with AeroPress, you want to be careful of surface tension. Surface tension will keep some of the brewed coffee on the bottom of the filter holder. And if you just pick it up, it starts to drip everywhere. So what I'd like to do is I like to tilt it. There is no surface tension in this one, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, put that over here. And let's look at our brew. There's our brew. Coffee Cove's with us. What's going on, man? How are you? I have the older Baratza Virtuoso, and I really like it. Yeah, that's one I have. Still working good. It's a great grinder. I've been very pleased with mine. Very pleased. Okay, let's get our tasting cup here. Okay, nice and clear. So there's good clarity because of the filtration, right? The paper filter. And what else there to say? I don't know what else to say. It's hot. No, I wouldn't say there's blueberry tone, but there's actually pleasant sweet tones. Lightly fruit. I want to say lightly fruit rather than lightly fruity. Lightly fruit meaning more reserved than fruity. Fruity would be more expressive. Fruit is a little bit tighter. There's definitely a strong bitter component to this coffee at the moment. The body is thin. As it's slightly cooling, I'm sensing a little bit more fruit coming out. But we've had some brews with this. We've had some recipes with this brewer that were bright, um, pronounced. I think what you guys like to use is high clarity. I'm not getting that here. Like it's not very bright. Definitely the brightness is toned down. The clarity, it feels slightly, as far as being clear, flavor clarity, a little bit dirty, a little bit rough, and a little bit muddy. Like I'm not. It's still pretty warm. I'm not. I'm not enjoying this coffee as I might have enjoyed some of the other brews we've had. Like I don't. Some brews were very bitter when we first started tasting it. This one's not as bitter as which one was the really bitter one? I can't remember, but this one is. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We're gonna see what it's like as it cools down more. Brian, what's going on, man? How are you doing? Yeah, it's definitely tight. Tight. There's a slight well, then actually it's not even that slight. It's actually, if you drink like a young California Chardonnay, the grapes are put onto young oak, and when you get it early on, it's really like tannic, right? A lot of tannins. It's really kind of got that on the palate. This, right at the moment, has some of that character, like a dryness to it. Bitterness has toned down slightly since it was warm or hot. Yeah, it's definitely got that tannicness, that tightness. It's a very tight taste. Let us see if fig bread will help. So this fig bread, we're going to eat with our coffee. This fig bread was made by my Aunt Josie, right? She made this yesterday or the day before, and then she gave this to me to use. And it's actually really good. It's very, very good. This is the first time she's made this fig bread because my other aunt, my Tita Mina, she has this at her house. She got a fig tree at her house. And like there's been a super abundance of fruit from her tree this year. And we've gotten lots of fruit from her to eat as figs. Like the other day when I was eating the figs, that came from this tree. And then I've been teaching my other aunt, how to make jams from it. So we just take a whole bunch and chop it up, and sugar, a little bit of lemon, water, and then just cook it down and then can it. Although I did forget a step in the canning process, but I think it'll be all right. Could be botulism. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, so the thing about this, though, I was eating it. No, she made it yesterday because I was tearing it up. I think I ate the other half of this yesterday, maybe in one sitting, or maybe in two sittings. But it's one of the things. It's nice. So let's get into it, and we'll have it with our coffee. Proplan says, I still like the Kalita wave. Just fine for. I think that's an important point. Like all of these other brewers, these are all nice brewers. And I think we've had some experiences with the OXO Rapid Brewer so far that have been quite nice. And I think it could be a good brewer. But for me, like if I'm brewing for myself, and maybe I should do a video about this, like how do I make coffee for myself? It's really like, it's definitely not the elevated goodness that we do here. Like really, I've got a I've got an old and used, beat up, and a darkly stained avid clever brewer that just sits around the house, and I've got cheap Costco paper filters, and I toss it in there. I put whatever coffee we have, and it's the coffee that makes the difference, right? So I'm actually using nice quality, not buying cheap like Folgers or anything like that. And I just weigh out 20. I actually will come down here, weigh out 24 grams, put it in the thing, and then I'm not even boiling water. I've got this like water tower, right? Those like water dispenser towers that you get from like, office supply store or whatever. And there's a heated side of it. I just turn it on. And there's my thought is like, I just want to have a nice coffee. I don't want to spend the time to like boil it and then like bring it to whatever proper temperature, 200, 198, 195, whatever the temperature may be. I'm just going to take it as it's hot and I'm going to brew it, and it's going to be great. It's going to be way better than pretty much anything I can go out and buy, So I don't worry, honestly, I don't worry too much about it. All right, let's go back here. I know some people might be thinking, I know friends of mine will think that I'm a charlatan for this. Now, here's the thing. This one, it will hold together under a fork, but it is pretty crumbly. So it doesn't necessarily, it'll break off and like you'll have all these crumbs. So let's give it a try. Lightly sweet. Like a light fig presence. It's not like it's not like a fig Newton. And if you're not familiar, in the United States, we have this commercial snack. They sell in the copiao called fig Newtons, and basically they're figs that have been ground up. I don't know what, maybe with sugar, and they put like a light bread around it or a cakey dough around it, and you eat it. It's not that sweet. It's not that fig apparent. It's a very light fig. It's really nice. The crumb is very moist. Now, since I did eat this yesterday, see, as I pull this off, it's coming out. So it is kind of, really, I was just eating with my hands because it's so much easier to grab it and shape it and mold it. And then you hold it like this, right? And then you kind of, much easier. And nice with coffee. But like I said, I was eating these yesterday, and today, compared to yesterday, there is actually a very noticeable difference. Like yesterday, the crumb was very moist. Today, you can see, well, maybe because I've got the outer cut. Let me go in the inner cut here. That's not a fair. Yeah, it's still very moist. It's just not as moist as it was yesterday. That's really the key point. And the coffee is very nice with it all. It's the coffee itself is a lighter brew. Like it's a lighter expression of the coffee. It's not that heavy. So it actually goes nicely with the fig bread. See, if you look here, if I do this again, right? So if I do this, it kind of breaks away. So very crumbly. I'm not, but still very tasty. Busa wants to know, is there any update on the cafe opening? No, there's no update on the cafe opening. One day, we will open a cafe. Craig's with us. Good morning to you. How are things up in Ottawa? Andrew says, congrats on the ribbon for your chair. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And Powerplant says, the fig Newton is very hard to, yeah, that is true. That is true. But I didn't even, when I was young and I started eating fig Newtons, I had no idea what figs were. I was like, fig Newton, really cool. Is it fruit? What? PowerPlan says bread would be a generous description for many people, as it more closely resembles a cake. I mean, that's fair enough. And quick bread would definitely be a good way to describe this one. And definitely I'm more into the cakey kind of texture for the crumb. Oh, and for your personal taste, PowerPlan and Clever Dripper. See, yeah, the AeroPress. Actually, I really wouldn't. For me personally, just me personally, I don't. It's okay. It's rare that I would use the AeroPress to make my personal coffee. And I think it's because I have to clean it more. Like the Clever, I will just toss the used paper filter with the coffee into the trash, rinse it under any kind of water from the tap, and then put it on the rack to dry. Whereas the AeroPress, I would have to like hold multiple pieces. Even if I didn't take the plunger apart, I would still have to take the cap off and then clean the cap and then clean the plunger. I think that's why I don't. That's why I don't use it for my daily for whatever. And I'm not even drinking. Well, I'm drinking coffee fairly daily, mainly because we do this live stream. But I may not drink. If I was left to my own devices, honestly, I would. There would be weeks. There could be weeks that go by without me drinking coffee. Now, together, wow, really nice. How about myself? Because now the coffee is cool, a lot better. I didn't enjoy it as much, I didn't enjoy it as much because when it was hot, just because it had those tannic notes. It had bitterness when it was really hot, and then that kind of moved towards tannic notes. Now it's that there's slight tannicness to it, but it's not as tight as it was earlier. A little bit better. But my problem with this recipe, right? And I don't know, maybe if you're just, and I've noticed it with a lot of these recipes that we're doing with the OXO, they seem to be catered towards very small brews, quantity-wise, right? Maybe it's just a glutton in me. Maybe it's just a hedonist, right? But I want a bigger cup. Like, not necessarily 16 ounces, but the 350 milliliter 12-ounce cup is a good balance of size so that when you want to have like a cake, a quick bread, or a bread, you don't have to be so frugal in your sipping, right? Reminds me of the time that I was at this place in Cebu and I ordered this Bass cheesecake and an Ethiopia coffee from Tim Wendelbo. Beautiful coffee, well done, awesomely done. Fantastic cheesecake, but gosh, the amount of coffee, I was like running out of coffee. Like that is not a recipe for pleasure, pleasurable hedonism, right? We want to have pleasure. And when you have to stress about like, oh, I have this much coffee left and I still have this much cake to go. This is an untenable situation, right? Like, how do you like? There's actually I'm not going to eat the whole thing, but I was thinking I would like to have one more slice, but there is part of me that's thinking I should brew another coffee, but do I want to go through that kind of routine? Powerplant says, I used to home bake a lot of bread for myself. I love using white figs. Oh, white figs. That sounds interesting, but they were really expensive. White figs have a lighter, less molassy flavor than a cooked black fig. Oh, interesting. I didn't even know there was that much of a difference. I made a bread with white figs, dried cranberries, and toasted walnuts that could put you on your... Nice. And Power Plant says that a 200, 250 milligram, it's just too small. It is just too small. Like maybe if I'm having like a cappuccino and a croissant, like an almond croissant or a pain chocolat, maybe that's okay. Because then you're kind of limited, right? And the cappuccino is the form. But for coffee, like you just want to, maybe it's the American in me, right? I just want to guzzle more, like 325 to 375 is the sweet spot. I agree with that. Kent says going weeks without coffee would be sad. Don't need coffee, just love it. 180 milliliters per serving. But Kent, in your case, are you eating things? Are you having cakes or something or any kind of food with it? Or is it just the coffee by itself? Because for me personally, if I'm just drinking the coffee by itself, maybe even 180 milliliters might be too much. Like a lot of times here, I will order a coffee and maybe an 8-ounce coffee, and I still won't finish it because I just want to taste. I want to satiate that and address that desire for it, and then that's enough. Right? But if I'm enjoying the coffee, which this one I'm finding, I guess I am finding it to be enjoyable, and I'm enjoying the accompaniment, then I don't mind continuing on with a little more volume. Oh, never food. See I think that's one of the keys is that if you're drinking coffee for the pure pleasure of the coffee, then 180 mils is perfect. But if you want to have it with food, then I like it to have a little bit, maybe a pitcher on the side. Powerplant says the great American tradition of a hamburger and a cup of coffee is dying. Yes, it is kind of weird. That I can see that would be good. I wonder what kind of coffee would be really great with like a hamburger or cheeseburger or bacon cheeseburger. See, I would prefer bacon cheeseburger. Like if I go somewhere, I want bacon cheeseburgers. I want the swine with the cow, right? We want that. The bovine and swine combination is always a pleasurable thing. And here's an interesting thing that I was reading about a while back. The hamburger is a relatively new culinary invention. Really, it was really pioneered by a place called Louis Lunch in New Haven, Connecticut, back I think 1912. And I've been to Louis Lunch. But I've only been there once because when you go there once, it's really awesome, and I'd love to go back. But it's only open for lunch. Like it's really a narrow window that's open, and who knows what time I'm gonna get to New Haven. And when I'm in New Haven, I'm busy kind of visiting all the pizza joints to try the pizzas and compare the pizzas. So, but Louis Lunch is really interesting if you get there for lunchtime because they've got these old school like grills, and the grills are vertical, and you put the patties in these like slots, and there's a burner on the inside that cooks it, and all the fat drips down, and they put it on white bread. It's cash only. But this was supposedly the place that invented the cheeseburger or the hamburger, and it springboarded from there. And in this article that I was reading, they were talking about how the modern hamburger, cheeseburger, whatever, would have been impossible over 100 years, 150 years ago or so. And that the only reason that this is possible is because of refrigeration, right? Because if we think about, and I don't know this very well, but like evidently the cows will only milk or produce, well, I guess they'll milk year round because we milk cows year round. But everything can be transported because of refrigeration, right? Like we can have, cows will give milk, cows will be slaughtered for food. And then we've got like tomatoes and lettuce and onions and pickles and all that. So pickling is a preservative, so that's been done for a long time. But the idea of transporting meats was not possible prior to refrigeration. The idea of having tomatoes and lettuce in the off season was not possible. Like if we waited, like my tomatoes aren't really even ready to go yet. They're still green. And I'm like, man, it's September. We need to hurry up here. You could only have tomatoes, like in the old days, if we had burgers, you could only have tomatoes in your burger, like one window of time of the year. Now we can have it any time. I mean, of course, we're flying a lot of it in, but the point being is that we could have had these things, right? And I was like, oh, so fascinating. I was like, wow. Like, all those people in the Victorian era, like they were suckers, man. No bacon cheeseburger, them and their stupid little dainty like cakes and their tea. Don't get me wrong. I love a good scone and black tea, but suckers they were nonetheless. I used to go to a diner in Sacramento and always see old timers on the counter stools with a cup of black coffee and a hamburger. I might have to give that a try. An awesome slice of Americano. That is an interesting one. We may have to do that on the show one day and figure out how to maybe go outside and do a grilling episode. A grilling episode might be good. Coffee Cove says, my family would drink coffee all day with meals growing up. I don't hear that much anymore. Maybe, maybe it's because, like coffee would have been a relatively affordable beverage for the average American family to buy. Right? They could buy it at the grocery store, grind it. Like I remember when I was a child, my foster grandmother, we would go to the grocery store, she would buy coffee and they would grind it right there. They had a big like bun grinder, old school, like big grinder. You know, the big one that's like this by the register, and you would grind the coffee. They would grind the coffee for you. But I wonder with with all the consumerism in America and companies wanting us to get more sugary drinks, other beverages, that we've been, led away from those days of like buying something that would be relatively affordable or very affordable, and one that wouldn't necessarily require you to add as much sugar. For example, like if you bought a coffee and you made a coffee and you were the kind of person, and back then most people were, that you wanted to put cream and sugar in your coffee, maybe a couple of teaspoons of sugar right in your coffee. Probably nowhere near the 130 or the 29 grams of sugar they're putting in Coca-Cola or a lot of these other drinks today. Like that iced cappuccino, I think, was 29 grams of sugar in that can of coffee. And I was like, man, it's terrible. So that is an interesting thing. Peter says to Busa, I'm thinking of getting a motorcycle. Oh, dangerous. And I know Busa is a motorcycle lover. And don't get me wrong, I used to ride motorcycles. I used to ride an old, like 1989 Suzuki GSXR 1100. Awesome. Like it was totally ridiculous. Like we'd be out riding and just going. It's amazing. It's amazing feeling. But I gotta be honest, I lost my nerve. I remember one point, like maybe 1990, or maybe the early 2000s it was. I got to this, maybe late 90s, early 2000s. I was riding one day on a friend's bike and I was thinking, you know what, how do I make this turn? I'm supposed to lean and I'm supposed to push slightly on the handles to the opposite direction. And I was like, I need to stop now because I've started to second guess what I'm doing. And I was like, that's a recipe for danger. So I haven't ridden in like over 25 years now. I don't necessarily miss it, and I remember the days with great fondness. I took if you do decide to get it, here in the United States, we have an organization called the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, and they have a motorcycle safety foundation. They have a basic course in learning the mechanics and mechanicals of riding. And I think it's well worth. I took that myself, and I think it's worthwhile to take that class and really just get a good grounding and foundation in riding. And of course, wear safety gear. When I was living in Honolulu, we didn't wear helmets, and I rode with police officers, so there was really no impetus for us to do most of anything legally. But I always wore at least would wear jeans and boots, because I remember hearing one story where somebody hit a car on a bike went forward and he was like sitting down and nobody paid attention because he seemed okay. They were taking care of other things. And then he died because what happened was that he was wearing like sneakers, flat-soled sneakers. And as the bike impacted with the vehicle and the bike stopped and he went forward and went through the handlebars. What nobody realized is that because he wasn't wearing boots that had heels, the heels would have pushed him up slightly and maybe cleared the handlebars, whereas the shoes didn't and basically ripped off his groin, put a gash in it, and he bled out. And I was like, that is a terrible way to go. I would prefer not that happen. So I always wear boots. I always wore, and that was it. Jeans and boots were like the big thing for me. Like we would wear t-shirts and like, that would be it. Stupidity when you're young. When you're in your 20s, you're just kind of dumb. But yeah, definitely I would say wear boots. And I always wear boots. I think that's super important. And long pants. Road rash doesn't seem, but you're wearing long pants, nice pants, but then you're wearing a t-shirt, and that's a recipe for disaster too. And you're not wearing a helmet, so that's a recipe for disaster. So wear a helmet. Safety is important. We'd like you to be here for a lot longer as you're riding and tell us about your riding experiences. All right, let's see here. Power Plant says, eating ex-dairy cows is in vogue these days, and the Louis Lunch adventure of the burger is pretty contested. So many people contest things like that. George Mott contends burgers were started in a few different places, and that wouldn't be surprising to me. Booster says, Peter, if you like short rides, then get a sport bike. Long rides, get something. Yeah, it depends on how old you are now, Peter. Like my friends who ride still, like one of my good friends, Bud, he's been riding for a long time. When we were younger, he had sport bikes. Actually, I don't know if I knew him during the time he had sport bikes, but before I met him, he had sport bikes and was part of the whole crew that was like my group in Honolulu, but a little bit crazier because they're doing like, 190, on the freeways and doing all this crazy stuff. But as he's gotten older, he transitioned to, motocross type bikes, and then was like really transitioned into Harley Davidsons, like comfortable cruising, like long, you could ride to like, I don't know, Arizona on this thing and relative comfort with like fairings that aren't going to buffer you with the wind, and you got a sound system and communication in case you've got your woman in the back and you're like, want to talk, so things that are not part of the sport bike experience. So you might think that. But sport bikes are cool, man. Sport bikes are cool. Coffee Cove says there is a famous hamburger shop in my town where seniors would go for coffee and a burger. Oh, that's interesting. What's that called? Maybe we'll look that up and see what they're eating there. Power Plant says, nice. It is a throwback. It's definitely a throwback. Peter says, I'm going classic bike. I don't like, one time, maybe like, it's been a long time, maybe 15 years ago, we were in California, and one of my friends, we was having a couple of friends, Dennis and Dodie, and like, Dodie was like, I'm thinking about getting a new bike. So we went by the BMW motorcycle dealership, and they had this cafe racer bike. I think it's called the 83 or something like that. And I remember I saw that, and I was like, oh, that is dope. I was like, that was like totally into my aesthetic at the time. And I was like, man, I should get one again. I like those. Those are kind of the cafe racer type bikes. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. So maybe something like that would be good for you. Maybe something like that, especially out there in the Australian outback. Get your leather bags, your leather jacket, and have that shotgun strapped around your back so that, in case kangaroos come. I hear koalas are also very like aggressive, so you might have to Mad Max them. PowerPoint says some argument for fat as well. What? For fat as well? I would much rather eat 120 kilocalories of butter than other oils. Ah, yes. Something we were talking about yesterday is like, if you go to France, we were talking about food with my friend Cirillo. Like, if you go to France, right? Like you go to Paris, ain't no fat people in Paris, right? Unless they're Americans, like me. You see a fat person, oh, must be American. and they eat bread and butter and all this bad stuff that we've been taught all of our lives here in the United States that, oh, that's bad for you. These guys are eating and they're all skinny and like looking good. Like, drinking wine all day long and driving and evidently drunk driving from drinking wine a lot in like Provence in the countryside is a problem. Booster says nothing like the freedom of nothing like the freedom when riding a motorcycle. That's so very true. So very true. Peter says butterfats are good if you're into keto diet. Well, you don't have to be into keto. It's not like you have to. It's not like you have to only eat that. I think we really need to look at more rounded meals, right? And quantity. I think quantity is. I tell you, man, many times I've had very large quantities of meals, and it's not. I don't know why. I think that's one thing here in the United States that we're really. I was reading an article many years ago about how like big agriculture, big food companies are trying to find more ways to get Americans to eat more so they can sell them more food, more product, and make better profitability. And I think that's one of the reasons we have such a problem with obesity in the United States. Ken says, however, I often enjoy baked goods after finishing my coffee, especially after a cup of decaf when watching this live stream. Yeah, it's 4 p.m., that's right. But when you're eating, let's say, so you'll have your coffee, enjoy beautiful geisha or whatever you're having from Tim Wendelbo, and then you have your cake after. Do you have a drink with the cake or any kind of accompaniment to the cake or whatever you're eating? Busa says your body guides the motorcycle. Take the class. I say to all, yes, I'm with you on that. And Busa is the one to really listen to because he's the one that's been in the saddle for so many years. I haven't been in the saddle for 25 years. Busa says, I always ride with gear, smart. Peter says, but I need for insurance purposes if I hire one overseas. I haven't ridden years. Yeah, that's all right. I mean, definitely take the class. The class is, it will only serve you, well to take the class, to learn about what, to rethink about technique and safety. I think that's always important. I have had some friends who have been killed riding motorcycles, and it's a very sad thing. Like one guy we were still young. Like he was my brother's best friend. So I was 21 at the time, and the guy was like 18, 19. I mean, super young, man, super young. And we don't really know whatever happened to him, but I mean, as far as what caused the crash, but he was killed. And then another friend of ours who was riding a Harley, he was big Harley, like a cruising Harley, and he was a fireman. And this is like maybe 15 years ago. So he was pretty old, they're maybe 40s. And just driving down the street, woman jumped in front of him, kind of severed him at the waist, like from what I was told. I was like, man, at the funeral, you don't get to see that. But so always be careful. Busa says, I'm 57 and still ride a sport bike. Flex. When I turn 60, I'll get a Harley, but I'm still keeping my Busa. Nice. So are you one of the guys that I hear flying up 83 like at 11 o'clock at night? Like I hear them. Like I'm several miles away from 83 North, and man, you can hear them. They're just giving it. They're like, their bikes are screaming, and I'm like, these guys have got to be pushing 200 miles an hour because you just hear they're screaming. The bikes are screaming. Paraplan says it's mostly due to walking more than Americans. Since America is more spread out, people get, that's a good point. Very good point. Europeans just walk more, among a few other things, for sure. Like, I often wondered, like, if I had lived in Paris or Tokyo, for example, would I have bulked up as much? Because, then you have to walk a lot more places. Where here in America, you're right. We just, gosh, if we don't park in front of the shop, we're like, oh, it's too far. It's terrible. We need to get better with that. Keone says that I haven't ridden in years. Every time I ride a motorcycle taxi here in Tampa, I'm reminded. I gotta be honest. Like I'm a little bit hesitant to ride on those bikes too, those taxis, because they have them not only in Bangkok, they also have them in they call it the Buddha in Kampala, and I'm like, my friends are always like, just take the Buddha, you'll be fine. And I was like, I think I'll just call the Uber. Like I feel I'm at the point where I just don't want to get into a crash, like unnecessarily, like if there's invaders into the city and they're attacking, and I'm like, we have to evacuate, and the Buddha is what's available. Okay, I'll take the Buddha then. Power Plant says older Europeans will still get chubby as they age and exercise less. Oh, okay, good point. Good point. Peter says I was catching the motorcycle taxi in Indonesia, cheapest and fastest. I mean, that really, especially in places like all these places, Indonesia, Thailand, Uganda, like, yeah, traffic is a problem, and it would be faster. I think Manila has motorcycle taxis. Again, I have never taken them. I'm scared. Peter says 50 cents in Vietnam motor taxi. Oh, see, motor taxis are there too. No, those are the young folks. I mostly like the looks. Central. Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Thanks. I will look that up. Oh, let's look it up now. Why wait? Why wait till later? All right, here we go. This is the Busa in action. Looking strong. Look at that. Whoa, looking strong. Nice bike, man. Nice. What does it say on the side? Obviously, you've had a lot of custom work done to this. A lot of chrome too, right? Nice, man. Nice. Awesome, man. Looks awesome. Oh, there's two. There's another one. Oh, there's another picture. All right. Man, those Busas are huge. Like, the fairings look so wide now. Wow. One of my favorites, my brother had this bike. I actually never bought a bike. The GSXR 1100 was a friend of mine who would just be like, he never used it. So he's like, yeah, just take it. Like, all right, thanks. But my brother he started out with the FCR 400 Yamaha. And I was like, I just love that. The compact size and the performance was really nice on it. I mean, especially, it didn't have like the performance of the Gixxer, or like, gosh knows, nowhere near the modern day Hayabusa. But yeah, just fun. Peter says, I take the sidecar motorcycle. Oh, yeah, those are fine. I think those are fine. Especially since they have the little, like, covers, so you're kind of like, safe from the rain and the sun. Russell says, lack of walkable downtowns in the U.S. hurts. My favorite exit in Europe is Centrum. Oh, favorite exit in Europe. Doesn't that mean center? Sorry, I'm not too familiar. Yeah. So long, and thanks for all the nice. Yes, that's a good point. Time to go. I don't really have anything else to babble on about, but thanks for tuning in. Always good to see all of you. Back again. Oh, I was going to say back again tomorrow. We may not be able to do one tomorrow because I might have to go up to Pennsylvania, and that might have to be early. So I will know later today. If we don't, I'll put a post on the community post. If we do, then I'll set the show for tomorrow. If not, we'll be back Thursday. Right, Thursday. Okay, good. Peter says, you guys have this. My Instagram is onocoffee, like the channel, with the number 4, right? So if you go to, let me see here. I'm digging the music there, Busa. This is my account. So if you want to look me up here on Instagram, feel free to friend me and I will friend you back. So onocoffee, like the channel name with a 4. I guess I don't. On the main channel videos, oh no, I think there is a link. If you can't remember, I think there's also a link in the description. If you scroll down a little bit more, I think there's one there in case you forget. Oh, okay. So Busa says that kanji for Hayabusa is what it says. Yes, they're big sport bikes, not meant for zipping in and out like the smaller bikes. And it looks like it. It looks like it. It looks awesome, man. It looks awesome. It looks awesome. All right. So thanks for tuning in. Be back again soon. And hope you have a great one. And see you next time.